Welcome to Together in Style. Today in my kitchen, I'm going to share with you a delicious recipe for a cherry nut cake. I love cake. In fact, it's something that reminds me of my past. My mom was actually a baker when I was growing up, so we would always smell the constant aroma of fresh cakes just being baked this time of year for Valentine's Day or during wedding season. So one of my favorite wedding cakes when I was growing up was a cherry nut cake. Being it's Valentine's Day and it's in the winter, I wanted to put a little bit of a different spin, so I used dried cherries and I used pecans for this. I'm also not going to frost this cake, so we're going to use a delicious chocolate glaze. I love going to the city and looking at all those beautiful pastry shops with cakes that are just glazed in chocolate, so I'm going to share with you a perfect recipe to have a heart-shaped, beautiful Valentine's cake that is certainly going to please your sweetheart and sweet tooth. Okay, you caught me. I'm definitely going to be cheating a little. I may not be making this cake exactly from scratch, but I'm using my own elements to embellish upon the cake mix that is already made. So I'm gonna be using a cherry chip cake mix. So I'm just gonna pour the complete cake mix into our KitchenAid bowl. It's kind of nice when you have a couple of little quick tricks up your sleeve to be able to make things go a little quicker. And I'm just gonna add in 3 eggs. And this will make the cake nice and fluffy. I can remember the days when my mom would have wedding cakes to be made, and it would be a weekend where there was lots of cakes, and so from Wednesday on there were sugar flowers being made and the smell of cake in the air. It was so amazing. And it was funny because when, you know, other kids may go to lunch and they were having Twinkie or a little Hostess cake, I had cake tops. So this totally reminds me of my past. It's such a delicious cake. But what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna just put in a ½ a cup of cooking oil, so any kind of vegetable oil you want. I have a cup of water, which I'm gonna add into here as well. And then I'm gonna add in my spices. So I have a ½ a teaspoon of almond extract and a complete teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Also, so with the dried cherries, I decided to go with like the craisins from Ocean Spray. The craisins and things that are packed in like a vacuum seal bag tend to be a little bit more moist and will make the cake a little bit more moist. And when you get some of the dried fruit that tends to be a little bit more for like granola, it doesn't do as well. So that would be my recommendation. Also, you're going to want to chop them up, because if you keep them whole, what's going to happen is they're going to just sink to the bottom of the cake. So I've chopped them up nice and fine, so I'm going to add those in as well. That's kind of the best thing about this KitchenAid, is you can kind of put everything in the bowl, and it's that strong of a machine, so it'll mix it all together. And last but not least, we have our delicious pecans. And these pecans also have been chopped to a nice fine level also to distribute nicely. So I'm gonna put that in there as well. Very good. And we're gonna put this right into our KitchenAid and mix it up. Beautiful. Woo, not too fast or it'll make a mess. All right, now that it's blended in just a little bit, I'm gonna speed up the process to really give it a good mix. And now I don't have any of that cake flour flying around. So I love the way this looks, but I kind of want it a little bit more pink. So you can do one of two things. You can take some maraschino cherry juice and maybe put like just a teaspoon in there, or you can just simply use some red food coloring. And I'm just gonna take 2 drops of it in there. Perfect. And then just blend that right back in there. And this way when it bakes, it'll turn nice and pink. All right, this batter is looking absolutely perfect. And I love the pink color. It is definitely gonna be perfect for Valentine's Day. Now, I have to admit, I absolutely love springform pans because they simply are the easiest cake pan to get a cake out of. So I found a heart-shaped springform pan. I am going to glaze this cake. So unlike some other cakes where you may grease and then flour the pan, I'm actually just going to spray coat it with some coconut oil. And this way, when I glaze it, you won't see any of the residue from the flour. Also, you may see the cake a little, so I want it to be as pretty as possible. So let me spray the pan really good. These little spray cans are so handy. On to finishing up this beautiful cake and popping it into the oven. The cake bakes for about an hour, and I have already preheated my oven to 350, so it is perfectly ready for me to put this cake in. So let me just pour this batter. Oh, that looks so delicious, and it smells so good. All right, let me just grab the last bit. I'd hate to see any of this go to waste. And we'll get that right out. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to bounce the cake pan a little bit, and that way it's going to just eliminate any kind of air bubbles that you may have in your cake. So I'm just going to take it and just kind of bounce it around. Perfect. So next is putting it in the oven. However, it's sometimes hard to get a pan like this out of the oven, so I'm going to place it on a baking sheet and then pop it in. So let me grab that. Okay, this looks fantastic. We're going to put it right in the oven. Kitchen timer for 60 minutes. Now that I've cut the top off my cake, I've let it sit so it's nice and cool. So now it's on to the chocolate glaze. This is the fun part. I absolutely love this recipe. It's so simple and it's so beautiful. So I'm just gonna turn on the heat to about medium, and I'm just going to add all of these ingredients, and we're just gonna whisk them together. So I have a half a cup of cream, put that right in there. And I have 4 tablespoons of dark cocoa powder. This is going to make everything very rich and so beautifully dark. I'm just going to whisk that a little. So I'm going to add a half a cup of water. And now I have some granulated sugar. I have a cup and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. We're gonna whisk that in there. It's gonna get nice and thick and rich, really chocolatey. I've also set an ice bath over on the other side. So we're going to thicken this by just putting this in the ice bath. It's gonna give a really rich glaze to the coating. And last but not least, I just want to add a little bit of flavor. So I have a tablespoon of vanilla and also a tablespoon of dark rum. Perfect. So you don't want to boil this at all, but you do want to keep whisking and just kind of simmer it over the stove on medium heat for probably about 15 minutes, and then carry it right over to the ice bath. The ice bath is definitely chilling it down nicely. And you might have thought to yourself, like, why didn't she just put, you know, chocolate chips and just melt them and then put that over top of it? Or do something like that. And yeah, I suppose that's possible, but what would happen is the chocolate wouldn't have such a delicate touch to it. Also, I wanted something that's gonna be shiny, and unfortunately, when you melt chocolate, it has kind of like a dull type of effect to it. So this is gonna be really, really pretty, and the presentation is gonna be beautiful. But we still do need to add another part to the topping. I do have a packet of just gelatin, so there's no flavor, but I'm just going to open it up and we're gonna add it to a tablespoon of water. And now I'm gonna mix up the gelatin so it's nice and dissolved, and it kind of forms like a little bit of a paste. So now that we have this nice little gelatin paste, we're gonna add it to our mixture. And now we're just gonna whisk that in to the mix as well. So this dark chocolate is becoming nice and rich and thick, and it's gonna be beautiful over top of the cake. And I mean, the reality is that Valentine's Day is filled with sweets, and this is such a sweet treat. I'm such a romantic, so anytime that I can have a little chocolate and some cake, I'm definitely a happy girl. Okay, so the cooling rack that you've been letting your cake relax on, you're just gonna put it over top of a nice deep bowl, something that's gonna cover all of the sides, because now here comes the fun. We're gonna pour this chocolate right over top of it. And I suggest that you just grab a little spatula tool, and that way, if you need to, you can kind of help it along. But it's so nice and thick and rich. I'm gonna just pour it on all of the sides, and it'll just nicely, just gracefully decorate the edges. Oh, it looks so delicious. And just keep pouring, and then it's just gonna casually go over the sides. And you're just gonna use your spatula tool just to pull it all the way over to the side so it just nicely coats everything. That's so perfect. So I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the most nerve-wracking part of this whole cake process, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So I'm just gonna take a long spatula and I'm just gonna kind of shimmy its way right underneath the cake. You will get chocolate on your fingers for sure. So try to get it under as much as possible and right in the center. And we're just gonna lift it up and delicately place it down. And now with your other finger, you're just gonna slide that spatula right out. Mommy taught me well, because I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I definitely made her proud. Well, it was nice to take a trip down memory lane and to create a cake that I know was special to so many couples. I mean, it was definitely a wedding cake favorite back in the day. So I am going to definitely share this with my husband, so I'm gonna keep it nice and intact, but I had to steal a sneak piece of everything. So here's where the cake top comes in handy. Just gonna add a little bit of this chocolate sauce. Oh yeah, it's absolutely perfect. Totally love the nuts and the way that the cherries just meld together. Great for the winter time, but it just reminds me of the past, and I absolutely love it. I know you guys are gonna love it too. It's a really pretty cake. It's so easy to do, and I hope you have a very happy Valentine's Day and enjoy life together in style.